Hello, welcome to Learning Life Podcast. My name is Tadisha, and I'm so glad you're here. This is a safe place where we can both learn and unlearn a lot of things about life. Let's get started. Hello, welcome back to Learning Life Podcast. My name is Tadisha, and this is a holiday episode that I'm calling Dealing with the Holiday Blues, because I know a lot of times during this time of year, people get a little emotional, I'll say. Me too. And I was thinking a little bit to myself how when I was in high school, I used to really suffer from from the holiday blues. And I guess because I remember when I started high school, my family had just moved abroad and I just really didn't like it there. And so I was so kind of angry and disappointed and mad at everybody. So I was always kind of temperamental, but I just suppressed it and stayed in my room. I was that moody teenager. And so I remember just like yesterday how I would be upset about all the things going on that I couldn't control. And so that's what I want to talk about in this episode is how a lot of times we have all these emotions and feelings, and we don't have the emotional intelligence. We have not been taught the emotional intelligence to deal with these feelings in the right way. And the thing is, God gives us our emotions and our feelings and our senses to help us. So, for example, God gave us five senses. We can see, we can hear, we can smell, we can touch, we can taste. God gives us all these senses so that we can navigate through life and avoid problems. Like, for example, if you see clouds in the sky, you know it's about to rain, you get an umbrella or you go inside, right? So God gives us these senses and these emotions and feelings to help us navigate through life, right? But instead of using those things, we tend to get caught up because we haven't been taught how to sort through our emotions. We get caught up in the emotions and we go into a downward spiral. I guess maybe the holidays is one of those times where things that have been unprocessed throughout the year kind of can all of a sudden just come down on you in one moment, in the span of the quote unquote holiday season. And so these emotions and these feelings and these senses are really supposed to help you. But instead, we tend to, is human nature, to um kind of want to numb these feelings and these emotions and ignore whatever it is that hurts us or that is a problem to us. And I've talked about how I had a social media addiction, and basically I would go through certain experiences in the day. I might have a bad experience at work or something, and I would just look forward to going on to social media at the end of the day, and it would make me feel like, oh, this was a good day. And in other words, I was using the social media as a form of escape and as a vice to help me deal with things, but I was not dealing with things in a healthy way. And so social media is just one vice, but of course there are much, much worser things that are more common for people to go to, and it just sends them to rock bottom, right? We see this every day, all the vices that people can choose that ultimately is self-destruction. And so with social media, that's just the tip of the iceberg, right? I can say that with me just having issue with social media and not dealing with things in my life, how it caused me a lot of trouble. I know how it is for somebody who has a worser vice. And so my point here is that the human tendency is to run away from our emotions and our problems instead of facing them. And the thing is, we're not designed to face these things alone. I'm coming to learn this myself. God wants us to bring every single problem and emotion and need to his feet. But we don't know this a lot of times, or sometimes we think that God doesn't care about the little things. And so we figure out things on our own. And I can attest to it that a lot of times I would try to control situations in my life and make things worse. And it's like, have you ever seen where they say you cannot have two people in the driver's seat? You can't have two people trying to steer the wheel or else you're going to crash the car. That's the same thing. We hold on to things and we ignore our emotions, and then we try to take control of our life and we don't allow God to take control, and then that's the reason why we end up crashing, right? Or hitting rock bottom and not understanding why things are the way they are, because we are in this cycle of escapism and avoiding our problems, and then when it gets to a very bad point, all of a sudden we're like, just numb it out, ignore it, and then we go through it over and over again, but we don't bring it to God. I like to give you this example. I saw it on Instagram. Um, it's a cute picture animation, and it's a child holding on to a little teddy bear or some type of toy, and because it's the only thing they have, they're so attached to it and they're holding on tightly to it. And in the same little picture, there's like a animation, and there's Jesus, and he's waiting for that child to let go of that little toy so that he can give the child a better teddy bear. And it's like, that's how we live life. We're holding on to our pain, our trauma, but we numb it. It's an interesting paradox that we're holding on to the pain and trauma and numbing it at the same time. And God wants to give us something good, something wonderful, a blessing, and we're still holding on to something that we think is comforting us when it's exactly the opposite. Um, I want to also tie this into this book that I'm reading. I've been reading it off and on for like a couple of months. And I mentioned it before. It's called The Body Keeps Score. And it talks about how trauma, people who have suffered from trauma and traumatic experiences, they can go through these times where they remember certain experiences, and they say it's like their brain is actually reliving it in real time. And it's just fascinating how the brain and the mind works, right? That someone can have experienced 10 years prior, and something can trigger them and cause their brain to relive it just like it's happening in the present. Like, the book gave examples of people like war veterans and people who have survived all kinds of traumatic incidents and accidents, how their brain will do this thing. And researchers use these MRI machines, and they see how the brain is like firing off like is an event happening in real time in the present. And so, in other words, what I'm trying to share here is that your brain, your body will experience and feel all these different emotions, in everyday life. And if you cannot process it and bring it to God, you're prone to just live in a cycle of trauma and repressing trauma by using whatever vice of choice that you know. So, what I'm trying to say here is that You can't gaslight yourself and you can't lie to yourself. Like I know this from personal experience that numbing something and lying to yourself about something, it only makes it worse. And I've had this experience in the past where I had to literally just turn off my phone and get off of social media and just be to myself for a moment and feel the emotions and think about past experiences. Because while we're not supposed to live in the past, if you are not acknowledging that certain past experiences are influencing you subconsciously, then you're going to continue to do things the wrong way because you have not properly acknowledged certain experiences in the past and felt the emotions and brought those emotions to God because God created each and every one of us. We need God to help us, to heal us, and to make us whole. So to say that you do this healing by yourself is wrong. What we should do, and it's something that I'm actively practicing and trying to perfect myself, is not run to the crutch or the vice, but to sit and be quiet, to just be alone, spend some alone time, think about some of the things that you've experienced in life, the pains, the emotions, and then just bring it to God and release it to God and allow Him to do His healing work. And this is not easy by no means. And I still go through this and I'm processing past experiences myself. But I can tell you when I disciplined myself, and there were some times where, situations made me had to do it. I had no choice but to be quiet and spend time with God. All of a sudden, it's like a burden being relieved. Like you feel like a new person. And so I'm just encouraging you and sharing this with you. If you feel all like an emotional roller coaster and distraught, and you're going into that rabbit hole of choosing a vice and then running away from things, just try it. Spend some alone time with God, feel those feelings, ask God to heal you, and you will see God work in your life. I'm a testimony to it. And it does take time because sometimes it's like God can do it instantly, but what I notice even in myself is that I have to have a willingness to it. And a lot of times I will ignore it until I get to a point where I start to feel it. And that's when you have to make that decision. Do you want to just keep suppressing it or do you want to seek a solution? All right. So moving on, I just want to end it on this one note. There's this verse in the Bible that I was thinking about, and the verse is lift up your shield of faith, which quenches the fiery darts of the enemy. And I was thinking about this verse a little while ago, and it just came to me that this verse is so powerful. I don't know how sometimes I've read things and I've overlooked and not grasped the meaning, but I'm always grateful when I get a new understanding of something. So I just want to share this with you quickly that faith is a shield, and the enemy's plan cannot work when you are in good faith, meaning that despite what you see, you know the truth that God works all things together for the good of those who love him. In other words, you have to keep the faith even when things don't look good, because if you start to let go of faith, then you're letting down your shield, and that's actually when the enemy's plans will work. So a lot of times that's why you'll see the enemy going after your faith and maybe even trying to bombard you with negativity, because once you start to get into a negative frame of mind, you are dropping your shield, which is the faith, and now you are just open you are an open target for the enemy to attack you because you don't have a shield. The faith is your shield. All right. So I hope this message blessed you. And, don't focus on what you don't have. Focus on what God has already blessed you with. Don't focus on lack. That's how the enemy tempted Eve. He got her to focus on the one thing she didn't have, which was a fruit that she didn't need. So, um, I hope you can grasp what I'm talking about, and I hope that it blesses you. And, yeah, so thank you for tuning in this episode. I hope you have a wonderful holiday, Merry Christmas, and a Happy New Year. Until next episode, take care. This is Learning Life Podcast. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope that you learned something, that you enjoyed this episode. If you want to support this podcast, please subscribe. Thank you so much. See you next week.